yeah. Oh yeah.
Hey, how's things, guy?
How are we doing?
Yeah, I'm good, man. You okay?
Very good, thanks.
I seen you've been training a lot with Jack lately, haven't you?
Yeah, well, I always train every day anyway, but obviously with the lockdown, Jack's a strapping 13-year-old into his fitness,
Yeah,
into his running, his rugby, and his tennis. So he's not able to go to the rugby club or the tennis club. So we've just been catching up by staying in good shape together.
yeah, it's good. That's good. That is. So we're not going to see a comeback from the Rocket Man.
Oh, 12 years ago, the last time I fought, and
Yeah,
when I retired, I never wanted to be involved in boxing again. But times changed on that. But
yeah,
I'd come back way too old for that now. It was just to get out of bed in the morning, so let alone boxing.
yeah. You left your career, man. The very impressive 30 wins. Was it 2 losses? Won the
Yeah.
world title.
Hmm.
When you first started training fighters, did you want to be in the driving seat then? Did you want to go back fighting?
No, definitely not. Definitely not. I think I was just gonna concentrate on growing my property portfolio because I started buying properties back in about 2003, and
Yeah,
Ricky Owen from Swansea, he asked me to help him out. So I said yes, got my trainer's license, and it just went from there really. And then about 2 years later, then I become a manager as well. I think it was less than that actually, because back then you didn't have to do your 3-year apprenticeship before getting a manager's
yeah,
license. So I think I was a manager very early on. So yeah, it just went from then. From there, I had Ricky, I had Ryan Evans and Jeff Evans. Jeff won the Welsh title. Ryan had to retire unfortunately due to sort of eye problems. But then obviously Gavin Rees came to me then, and he asked me to help him out, and it just all went from there really. Myself and Gavin worked really well together,
yeah,
and it gave me a platform really to show a little bit of what I could do, and in
yeah,
those days I was learning with each fight. As a coach, you never know from the start, obviously, because you're always learning. You never know the right things to do from the start. So we learned together, myself and Gavin, and it worked most of the time. He had a couple of losses, but in the 11 fights at the end of his career that we had together, he earned a lot of money, and
yeah,
there was some great times. And I'm sure Gavin will say the same.
yeah. So your plans were to leave boxing altogether after you retired?
Yeah, definitely. I'd fallen out of love with it, I think, years before,
Yeah,
and I suppose I was doing it really because I was successful of it, I think, but my I think my dedication had waned a little bit, not so much with the training in the gym, but with my diet and stuff like that.
yeah,
So I'd come 30 years of age. I've been boxing since I was 8. So sometimes you can just have, yeah, you can have enough of it, can't you? You see it with
oh yeah,
a lot of the amateurs who've had 100, 200, 300 amateur fights, and they turn pro, and they're just never the same as pros, are they? As they were as
yeah,
amateurs. And perhaps sometimes you can put that down to they just had enough of it. It's just been drummed into them since they were a kid, and sometimes they just fall out of love with it.
So you went from 8 years old, started boxing, to winning a world title, to fighting Kelly Pavlik, who everybody
Mm.
was avoiding at the time. He was a bit
Yeah,
of a beast. Well, you met him out in Texas?
yeah. I mean, obviously, you say to win a world title. I mean, I won a very unregarded version, but I mean, you know, I see a couple of people on social media talk about these titles like the IBO.
Yeah,
They're probably all in the same bracket. The IBO and the WBU. There were a couple of around, a few years ago as well, but the WBU is now gone. The president, John Robinson, who was a really good guy, by the way, he died, and it kind of not long after that it fell away. But when I won, I think Ricky Hatton had won the WBU. Enzo Mack. There was a host of good names that won it, and it was kind of a stepping stone to bigger things. And obviously, we earned good money from fighting for that WBU. And I think a lot
Yeah.
of the time people just don't look into things like that. They just think, oh, he was WBU champion, well, so what? But you know, I defended against Ryan Rhodes in my first defence, and at the time we were both highly rated by the WBO. So, you know, that could have very easily been a WBO title fight. And nobody would have said any different. So, you know, some guys win the IBO or the WBU never having fought anybody really highly rated. But, you know, against Ryan Rhodes, it was a cracking fight. We were friends since we were kids, you know, Ryan and I, from the age of sort of 15, 16. So it was a very respectful matchup. And now Ryan's a coach as well. And we still keep in touch with friends on Facebook. And it was a cracking fight. I still feel that shot that he dropped me within the 10th round. But luckily enough, you know, I finished strongly and won it. But it was a cracking fight all the same. But in answer to your question, I think it was a couple of years after that. Then I fought Kelly Pavlik, who was in it. I think he was number 2 in the pound for pound ratings. I think.
Yeah,
you know, by the
that time he was the beast, wasn't he? He was avoided by everybody. Yeah,
by the Ring magazine, I think he was number 2 pound for pound. So, you know, it is what it is. You know, you have to take the cards that you're dealt. And the cards that I was dealt was, when I get my world title shot, I fight an elite fighter. Whereas some of these other guys, they go in a vacant title shot.
Yeah.
And they fight someone who just really isn't that good. So they become a world champion, but they never really beat a world champion to win it. So, but as I say, you know, you just have to go with the cards that you're dealt, and that's the way that it played out for me.
Was you met him back out in Texas, didn't you? When he went out with Jay Harris. Was that the first time you've seen him since the fight?
Yeah, it is. I know he spoke briefly about me on the Joe Rogan podcast. I think he said something about me on the Joe Rogan podcast, but I was up in my room, and Lee Eaton phoned me, and he said, "Look, Kelly Pavlik's down here." He said he wants to come and, you know, he wants to meet you. Yeah. So I went down. He was getting interviewed, and he sort of caught my eye, and he interrupted the interview. He came over and shook my hand. He said, "I'll come and have a word with you in a minute."
Yeah.
And we had a good chat. But then I walked off. But then Michael Perlman, who's a mate of mine who works for the BBC Wales, he said, "Look, just thinking about doing an interview with Kelly Pavlik. Why don't you sit in, you know, and you have the interview together?" Yeah. So, you know, I've never been much for selling myself or talking myself. I try to keep myself to myself, but I plucked up the courage, and I think it was well received. I think it came across really well.
Oh, I'll have to try and look for that. Is that? Can you still see that now on YouTube or anything?
I'm not sure, John. I can ask Michael Perlman for you where you can sort of, if there's a way that you can watch it.
Yeah, it'd be great though. Because when you went out to Texas, apart from your own world title shot, that was a massive event, great card, great fight. Jay put on a massive performance. Was that, say, like one of your best experiences in boxing?
There's been many, John, to be honest. I was only explaining to someone the other day that I think my experiences as a coach and a manager, obviously I had really good experiences myself. You know, the first British title I won when I was 14, that far outweighs anything I ever won in the pros or anything I ever went on to win in the amateurs. I just can't. The feeling of elation was it was overwhelming. I was in floods of tears. I was 14 going on 15 it was a competition called the Daily Star Golden Gloves. I was kind of very young for the age because it was done in calendar years. So I'm the end of November. And the two guys I fought were sort of, they were a year older than me in school. So there was a guy that got to the British schoolboy final, a kid called Luke Price. And I knocked him out in the first round. And then the next day I boxed a formidable Irish guy by the name of Anthony Dunn. And I think he'd had 60-odd fights, and I think he'd only lost 3. And I think I was having my 15th fight. And so I had a torrid first round. I lost the first round, but then I stuck to my boxing, believe it or not. I stuck to my boxing, and I won it on a 5-0 unanimous decision. But I kind of went off what you asked me then. The experience I've had, both as a coach and a manager, I think the experiences maybe outweigh what I did myself on a personal level as a
Yeah,
boxer. I mean, Gavin Rees in Paris was a massive one. The second Derry Matthews fight was a massive one. Over Mackenzie, Enzo Macronelli stopping over Mackenzie
yeah,
when everybody said that he was going to get, everybody was really worried about him, saying he was
yeah,
finished, and he put on a great performance, took some big shots, and showed a lot of guts that night. Liam Williams winning the British and Commonwealth titles.
yeah,
I'm leaving people out like Chris Jenkins winning the British title with a superb performance. Nick Blackwell
yeah,
stopping John Ryder to win the British title.
yeah,
Um, there's so many, and the memories that I'll never forget. Enzo in Moscow against Roy Jones, and
yeah,
calm down. I'm not saying that Roy Jones was anything. Roy Jones was shot and finished by then, but it was
yeah,
just the whole experience that we had in Moscow. And I had our mate Alex on the undercard, and Zach
yeah.
Davis on the undercard as well, and we came away with 3 wins. So that was a great experience.
Enzo to say himself as well, or he's not one to say that Roy Jones is in his prime or anything like that. He admits that Roy Jones was on his way out. But
Well, the tweet he put out, John, when he first did it about, I can't remember what the tweet was he said, but when I look back to the night I beat a prime Roy Jones, and the amount of people who were just come on, the amount of people that are giving him stick for saying it because they're just not very bright. Enzo's he's always joking around, and
yeah,
perhaps people ought to think before saying anything, thinking, is he really serious there? But
yeah,
no, it was a good tweet, and it got him loads and loads of accolades and loads of criticism from the trolls as well. So
yeah. You think, obviously, all the great nights you've had, and there's plenty more to come with the stable you got at the moment, because you've got such a variety of fighters. What's in the pipeline for most of them, if you know,
well,
with all this happening?
yeah, there's a few things. We're in very uncertain times at the moment, John, aren't we? So we have to be
Yeah,
very careful. Um, I've done a couple of sessions with a couple of the boys, but we have to stick to all these rules about staying outside and
yeah,
social distancing and stuff like that. So we haven't done nothing too much at the moment. But I mean, the first one is going to be Nathan Thorley against Chris Billam-Smith, which is going to be either the end of July or the beginning of August. It might just be the fight that Nathan needs for a very good performance, because obviously he's been having 4s and 6 rounders since that good win over Jermaine Asari for the Welsh title. Just been treading water, so I think a good performance is due. And he's a big lad, Nathan. He's got a brilliant jab, and he can really, really crack. So I understand Chris Billam-Smith's a very good fighter, a fight I respect. But it's a good fight for Nathan, definitely. There's that. Meredith Thomas, we're just waiting for. He was supposed to fight a kid from up north for the WBC Youth, which it is what it is. It's a WBC Youth. It doesn't really mean a lot, but it gives you a ranking, and it's a meaningful fight against a fellow unbeaten kid who's 7-0. So that's a good fight for Meredith. We're waiting for the rescheduled date now, because as I was going to say, I think it was supposed to be May the 8th. He was going to fight him, and then it got cancelled. So we're waiting for that to be rescheduled. Chris Jenkins, there's been all this publicity about Conor Benn, but that's all up in the air at the moment because we haven't really been given any offer. So there's lots going on behind the scenes. There's a number of names that Chris could fight, but obviously all the publicity has been about Conor Benn.
Conor Benn, yeah.
So as far as a date for Chris, it's all up in the air, regardless of what people are saying or what people are reporting. We haven't shook hands, we haven't signed anything on any fight yet. And then there is also talk of the show, isn't there? The rescheduled Cardiff show. So hopefully, when that gets rescheduled, it's October now, I believe, John. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So there'll be a few boys on there as well. Who yet? I don't know. Hopefully Jay Harris, because after that performance, I know that Eddie Hearn was he was speaking very good things about him, saying good words about him. So it'd be nice to get him on. That's about as far as we are at the moment, because as you can imagine, everything's all up in the air. Very, very few promoters are going to be doing behind closed doors bills because they just haven't got the funds to pay.
Yeah.
Who's got a spare 10 grand they can throw away? There's no ticket sales for them to get the money back. So it's a very uneven and uncertain time, but it is what it is, and we've just got to get on with it and make the most of it.
See, Chris did fight Conor Benn. What approach would you take on that for him to fight them? Because he's quite a wild fighter, and he was.
Yeah, I mean, brains are not brawn. Chris. Everybody said, Chris came to me and became a British champion, but that wasn't the case. Chris has always been a good fighter, and that's sort of taken credit away from his former trainer, Ronnie Morris, who obviously done a really good job with him. But I just think that Chris started listening a little bit more to myself when I told him just to stick to his boxing. And I think the first time he did was the fight before Johnny Garton. He really he had to have a 6-rounder at championship weight to sort of prove to the board that he could make welterweight and perform at welterweight, which he did, and he boxed really, really well. So, Chris boxed really well. So, he didn't fight at any moment in the fight. He stuck to his boxing and he used his nut. And I think that would be the same type of thing that what we do against Conor Benn. Not getting drawn into a war. Conor's a cracking young fighter. Is he ready for Chris? I really don't know. If they fought, if they ever fought, you'd get your answer. But obviously, it's the team that he's got behind him. A friend of mine is his trainer, Tony Sims, and very, very experienced man, one of the best coaches in the country. So they wouldn't be letting him or trying to make the fight unless they thought that he was ready. So
yeah. Because he'd never really fought anyone of Chris's caliber yet, so it's a find-out fight for him.
Yeah, of course it is, and he'll sink or swim, won't he? Once he comes up against someone with Chris's ability, it's sink or swim. And it might be that he just hasn't got the experience. It might be that he just rises up to that level. You never know. There's been plenty that has, included his dad. And his dad fought. Yeah. He boxed a string of journeymen, didn't he? And then he fought for the Commonwealth title and rose up. So, yeah.
Because Chris, I absolutely love Chris. He's mad as a box of frogs, isn't he? But he haven't had it easy in boxing. Can you tell us a little bit about your relationship with Chris? Because I know you're close.
Yeah. He's, he came to me after, I think after he lost to Tyrone Nurse, I think, not long after. And it was very slow because he didn't have a promoter behind him, not really a ticket seller. So we had to take a couple of fights away from home. He took a fight against Phil Sutcliffe in Belfast. And, he got robbed that night. That was on 3 weeks' notice.
Yeah.
Literally off the street, wasn't training at all, took it on 3 weeks' notice. And then, there were a couple more setbacks there where we had to take fights away from home. So he boxed Akeem Ennis-Brown over in, was it Worcester or Gloucester or something? I think it was Gloucester. Something like that, away from home again. 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks notice. Clash of heads, cut, fight stopped. Yeah. And then there was the Darragh Foley fight where the cut happened before the end of the 4th round. So it was a technical draw. And he was going to pack it in after that, but I convinced him to sort of hang on in there because I was convinced that we could get him some type of shot on some fair sort of circumstances where he might be away from home, but he gets plenty of time to train and whatnot, So he had some real bad problems with in his personal life. Then he had a couple, I think one of his best mates committed suicide, and he was very, very low. But all the boys were there in the gym to sort of pick him up, keep him going. And like I said, we had that shot, and I phoned him and I said, "You got the shot. The only problem is you're coming off a draw and a loss, so you need to fight in 2 weeks.
Yeah,
You need to get a win under your belt, and then we'll put the fight to the board and see if they accept it." And like a true professional he is, he got in the gym. He won the fight. 2 weeks' notice, unbelievable. 6-round fight, made weight, sound. Rest is history. You know, he got the shot, and he performed really well on the night and won the British title. And it's like I always said to him, you know, if you lose it in your first defence, no one can ever take it away from you.
Yeah.
But then 3 fights later, he's still champion.
Yeah.
We're still here. So, it's a great story.
Is he going to defend it one more time to keep the belt?
Or another twice, because the technical draw with Liam Taylor didn't count. So,
right.
The wins against Johnny Garton and then Paddy Gallagher, they count. But then there's another 2, and one of them has to be a mandatory as well.
Right. So, don't know the other boys. You've been keeping an eye on them, flawless, and making sure they're working hard.
No. I mean, at the end of the day, look, if they're professional athletes, and obviously I'm staying in touch with them, but you know, they should be trying. No, I see on social media, you know, Meredith and Nathan and Chris, and I don't want to drop anybody in it now, but there's some that have, there's some that have, and some that haven't, and that's their own problem. Because when we get back to the gym, it's going to be really, really hard work for them. And you know, it's like I always say. I used to chase fighters. You know, fighters don't turn up to the gym. You're chasing them. You're phoning them. Where are you? I don't do that anymore, because unless they're banging, they should be banging down the door to the gym. They got great opportunities. I got good contacts in the game. I can get them on good bills, and you know, as has been seen with my history over the past sort of 10, 11 years, you know, I've got a good association with lots of people, lots of promoters. I'm there to do all the hard work. You know, they do the hard work, but I'm there to give 100% with them anyway. So if they're not banging down the door to go in the gym, I'm not going to chase them. But to be honest, you know, most of them, you don't have to do that. But there's just 1 or 2. You don't see them for months and months and months. And it's just a shame. Not mentioning any names, by the way.
Like you said just now, obviously you're a fantastic trainer, one of the best in Britain, but managerial, you've always got your fighters the best opportunities. They're always fighting for something or got the opportunity to fight on a big stage.
Yeah, of course. I think it's, you know, you need to know the rules, first of all. You need to read that green book and know the rules, because I've caught different people out and got opportunities for fighters just by knowing the rules. That's the first thing. But then, you know, it's not being too greedy. I mean, you hear all the horror stories, don't you, about boxers being ripped off and left, right and centre.
Yeah.
There's none of that. At the end of the day, look, there's enough in the pot for everyone. And the boxer, you know, if the boxer gets £10 or £20 or £100, then, you know, the percentage that the trainer and the manager takes should be fair, shouldn't it? And the boxer agrees with it. None of this, like, you know, the boxer gets a purse, and then when he gets paid 2 or 3 weeks later, half his money is gone.
Yeah, it's not right.
And it's happening all too often. You know, from 40, 50, 60 years ago, and it's still happening.
Yeah.
It's disgraceful.
Have you got your eye on any up-and-comers at the moment to manage or train?
Not really. I mean, you know, there's a couple of guys that have been coming to the gym that are looking to turn over. So, you know, I don't really want to say too much, because it's private. But there's a couple of guys been, you know, coming to the gym who were turning over, and then obviously this pandemic hit in, and they weren't able to follow through with it. So, but no, listen, there's always good talent around, isn't there? And you know, if sometimes they go to other people, good luck to them. But if they come to me, you know, gym full of boxers, you know, is a happy-go-lucky place. I don't always have the scowl I've got on my face. I'm always smiling as well. So, you know, it's always a great camp to join. All the boys are mad. We have a good laugh,
Yeah.
and they'll be well looked after. And I think 99% of the people who I've ever trained or managed will say exactly the same.
Yeah. What about young Jack? You're going to be signing him as a boxer?
No, to be honest, that was one of the things, when I had a son, he's 13 now. I never wanted him to box.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, the guys who have got sons that box, I tell you what, you got bigger balls than me, because it would be so hard for me to see my son in there, But he's not really got that manner, to be honest. He follows my wife, so I don't know what that's saying. Is that saying he's a nice guy? Yeah. No, he's just a nice-natured boy. He follows my wife more really than me. So he plays a lot of rugby, plays for Cardiff Lawn Tennis Club as well, and and he's just into his fitness. He's training every day, and it's good. One good thing that with the lockdown is I've been able to spend some quality time with my family. Where a lot of the time you come home from work, we see each other for a couple of hours, and I've been training with my daughter, I've been training with my son, spending a lot more time with my wife as well. So we've got to look at the positives, haven't we, in this pandemic? Yeah. And people look at it as a bad thing, and geez, the people that have lost businesses, of course I can't speak for them, but on a personal level, of course we're not earning no money at the moment, but you can take positives from it, because you can be advantageous in other ways by spending lots of time with your family and doing different things, can't you? So it's been good in that respect for me.
Jack, Chris just dropped a comment now. Jack beat me on a track last week. Just glided past me.
I won't tell you what Chris said to him either. No,
I can only imagine.
Yeah, no, they did 8. It was the first track session for ages, so I just eased them in. They just did 8 400s and 4 200s. So Jack did the first 4 400s, took one off, did the 6, took one off, did the 8th. So he did pretty well. He did pretty good. He's only 13, so but suffice to say, I think he only come 4th out of the 4 once, and most of the time it was at the expense of Chris. Sorry, Chris.
Imagine what he's like. He's bonkers, man. One thing I want to ask you, Gar, is you went straight where you won the world title. How come you didn't go down the traditional route of the Welsh and British?
Well, it's a question that I've been asked quite a few times, and I had a British title eliminator against Alan Gray. I'm thinking now 2004, scheduled for 2004 sometime, I think, anyway. September 2004. And I had to pull out of the fight. January 2005, I had to pull out of the fight because I had a virus. Tried my best to sort of have a couple of days off, and try and dose myself up and whatnot. I can remember doing a session about a week before the fight, and I was just dreadful. I couldn't even get 2 rounds out on the pants, so I had to pull out. I was out of the ring then until the following September. So my fight with Alan Gray got rescheduled, but it wasn't British title eliminator this time. They just dropped it to an 8-rounder. It was on the Calzaghe Ashira undercard in Cardiff. So I stopped Alan Gray in 2 rounds, and then I got offered the WBU title shot. So what's the best way to put this now? If I'd have fought for the British, I would have got half the money. In my contract,
oh, really?
It was X amount for the British, and it was X amount for the WBU.
Yeah.
So fighting for the WBU, I got double the money I would have by fighting for the British. So it was just a case of, I was a kid of, 26, 27. I'd been out of the ring for a year. So, I had very little money. So as a kid, when you're a young boxer like that, I think most of the time, guys go for the money over the prestige of the title, if you understand what I mean. Yeah. But looking back, I'm not gutted that I went the WBU route, but I think it would have been nice to win one of those prestigious titles, you know, the British or the European, not so much the Commonwealth, but, you know, the British or the European would have been nice, you know, to just to look back on. But no regrets.
That's good, as long as you've got no regrets, because
No,
you've
not at all.
achieved massive amounts in the sport, not just fighting, outside as well.
Yeah, well, you know, it's nice for you to say that, but you know, I'm only a young coach. Yeah, I'm still only 43, and you know, hopefully, the success that I've had that carries on. You know, and
Yeah,
you're only as good as your fighters. You know, and
yeah,
people say about this trainer and that trainer, they're the best trainer in the world, they're the best trainer in Britain. I don't take the notice of that. At the end of the day, look, one size doesn't fit all. I think as a young boxer, you have to find the trainer that suits you.
yeah,
You know, I'm not ever going to work with everybody. You know, you can't work with everybody. Sometimes someone doesn't like your style. Sometimes people might think that you know, you're talking rubbish. I don't know, but it's like I always say to the boxers: if I tell you something you don't understand it, ask me, and then if you keep trying it and you don't get it, don't do it. Going one
yeah,
year out, I'm not going to get offended, because it's like trying to teach me when I was a boxer to be up on my toes and fancy Lomachenko footwork. I
yeah,
could never have done that. I could never have done that. So, you know, one size doesn't necessarily fit all. You have to find the right trainer for you.
yeah, definitely. And you've got massive respect in Wales and Britain in boxing, and now you can't really ask for more now, can you?
No, it's nice, you know. Someone, I think it was ex-boxers. There's an ex-boxers page on Facebook, and someone put my photo up there and said Gary Lockett was a pro boxer from 96 to 2008. And the comments underneath, you know, there was I can't remember how many comments, 30, 50, 60, I can't remember, but they were all very, very respectful, um,
Yeah,
which is nice, you know, and I value that, you know, my respect in the game. I really, really value that, you know, more than anything. So it's really nice.
yeah. A nice comment there from Nick Blackwell. Brilliant coach, the best they ever had.
Yeah, Nick, he's funny, but no, you know, as I mentioned earlier, you know, the fight against John Ryder, you know, again, the memories, you
Yeah,
know, because nobody expected Nick to win, and it was his third shot at the British title. And our first fight together actually as well. So it was bittersweet to win it. The away fighter on a matchroom bill as well. So brilliant for Nick.
yeah, brilliant. I won't take up any more of your time now, Gareth. I can't thank you enough for coming on.
No problem.
It's been good to chat to you. Hopefully,
Good. This,
when all this is over, we'll pop down to the gym and see you down there.
yeah, no problem. Just a word of advice: keep wearing that cap, because that snapback is terrible.
I just covered in my bald head. It cut all my hair off.
Nice one, John. Nice to speak to you.
Lovely, thank you, Gareth.
Cheers.
I'll see you later. See you later.
Bye now.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.